So, best laid plans. Last time we made our snap bag, and it turned out so cute. I love it. But I told you to get, at least a little bigger piece to do the matching. And then I made a prototype of a pocket that I was going to use. And when I put it on here, it didn't do it for me. I just really didn't like it. So I went back to my spare dish drying rack, mat, whatever it is, and I decided that I think that is going to be cuter, kind of playing up on the gingham, but this time pulling out the blue and the ribbons. So I'm going to use this instead. Now, if you still want to use your fabric, it's going to be the same general idea. We're still going to make a patch pocket in the same way. So we will have this one to show you if you're using your regular cotton fabric. But if you want to use a piece of a dish mat, like me, then you certainly may. Now, you also need to make sure that you have your straps ready to go. Mine are at 32 inches and I already melted the edges and I didn't even catch the house on fire. Now, the other thing I noticed with my placemats was there's a spot, and I don't know if you can really see this, right here where the binding was attached. So I'm going to make that my bottom because that's going to get cut off anyway or up underneath. So I'm going to make sure that on each of my placemats, I am putting that binding on the bottom. Okay, and then we're going to be ready. Now, when I made this one with the pocket, I did it 8 by 6, and my phone fits in there, but it's a little bit of a tight fit. So I'm going to make this one 9 by 6, and on this one, we put the straps on the outside, but I don't want to cover up those scallops. So for this one, we're actually going to attach the straps on the inside. It's going to be the same idea, but we're going to do them on the inside. And these are the things that we are going to do before we start sewing up our side seams. So first, I think I'm going to put the pocket on, and then we'll do the straps, which we've already done once, so that should be quick and easy. Okay. Regardless of whether or not you are using regular cotton fabric or if you are using your dish drying mat, say that 6 times fast, you are going to want to measure. Now, luckily, this one is just about 9 inches on this side, and then I'm going to go 6 inches up. I'm going to try to keep as much of the serged edge as possible because that means less work for me. We'll only have to serge the top and the other side. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this at 6 inches here. And I'm going to clean up this 9-inch because it's close, but it's not quite. So I'm going to go ahead and clean that one up as well. Yes, I know, I shake. So we're going to take this over then to the sewing machine, and I am going to do a zigzag. Now, normally I would serge it, and on this one I actually did serge it. So if you have a serger, you can use your serger. But since most of you do not have a serger and may not even have an overlock, but you definitely have a zigzag on your sewing machine, I'm going to show you that you can just zigzag this to clean this edge up. Okay. I'm going to switch over to my zigzag foot. It has a wider hole here than my 1/4-inch foot. So I'm going to quickly, hopefully, change that and re-engage my dual feed. And then I'm also going to come over here and switch it to zigzag. And again, I like it to be a little closer. So I'm going to go to about a 1 and a little wider. So my zigzag's a little wider. So I'm going to take mine to a 6-ish. You may not go to a 6. I have a 9mm machine. And then I'm going to just run right at the edge, actually kind of catching the edge of my fabric, the very edge. I hope you can see that it is catching and kind of locking in the very edge so it doesn't fray. Now this I have found doesn't necessarily fray, but it does leave little pieces of cotton everywhere. So this will hopefully keep it from doing that. And then when we get down here to the end, we're going to leave our needle down and do a pivot. We're going to do the same thing down that other edge. I don't know how many edges you might have. I only have 2 edges that I need to do this to because I am utilizing the serged edge that was already on the dish drying mat. Now, if you're using regular cotton, you can do this as well, and you'll want to do it obviously to all 4 edges. And we'll do a little back stitch, not really. Okay, and cut it. Now, if you look at the edge, you can see that they're all kind of locked in there. It's right at the edge in here. Hopefully you can see that. Now, I did the same thing with the zigzag to my fabric that I'm not going to use, but just so that those of you who are going to use it can see what it does. It gives it like almost this rolled edge, or I don't know what even to call it, a serged edge look on your cotton. And ideally, to make a pocket, we would give it a little stabilizer back here, some interfacing to give it a little bit more structure. But I think on this project, this will be just fine. Okay, so this is what yours would look like if you did. And don't worry, I know when you're zigzagging, it looks like, when you're that close to the edge, it looks like the machine is going to eat your fabric. Most times it doesn't. So just keep going. Stay with the process. Got it? Process for both is similar, but I want to show you on the cotton. What you're going to do is with your pretty side up, you're going to want to fold down, I don't know, however far down you want to. I'm going to go about 1 inch. Since we're only making 1 pocket, it doesn't really matter because it doesn't have to match anything. And I'm going to give that a press. And then I'm going to flip it and I'm going to do the bottom of my pocket. It does not have to be as big. Okay, this is just a little patch pocket. I'm going to take that one across there as well. Now, I'll show you a trick with this one. Since this is cotton, I'm going to sew just here and here on both sides. And then I'll show you what it does. Now, I did both sides, just securing that. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to take just a little bit of this corner off and a little bit of this corner off, making sure not to cut my stitching. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. A little bit of your corner. Just makes it neater whenever we are turning it. Then when you turn this out, your good side will actually turn. Now, ideally we'd have a little bit of a bigger turn, but this will work. And then I'm going to iron it down there. It'll actually turn your sides in for you, okay? Now, if you need a chopstick to poke out those corners, go ahead and grab one. These ones weren't too bad. So I was able to turn those without using a chopstick. And then when you flip it over here, all you have to do is run a little stitch right here, just so it doesn't get caught. And you have a very pretty pocket, and all of your seams are going to be, needs a little bit of a better press, but all of your seams are going to be encased inside there, okay? And all of your raw edges. So that's what we're doing with the cotton one. And I will take it over. I'm not going to even show you. I'm just going to take it over and run a stitch right here, right at this edge, just to keep that down. I don't know if you can see that. All I did was run a stitch just to hold that down, okay? Now, back to the dish drying one. This is going to stay just as it is. I kind of like that little pop of color. But then I'm going to use my little clips and I'm going to fold just about, what is that? That's about 1/2 inch. I'm going to fold about 1/2 inch over from the pretty side to the bad side. And I'm going to put a couple clips there. Up here at the top, where it's going to show, I'm going to do like a little fold in and then over, just so that it doesn't stick out at the top. Okay, see how that looks? Okay, so I'm going to do that on all of those corners. I'm going to do both of them, fold over and then up at the very bottom. So what I did is I took both pieces and I made a little triangle, folding it in and then folding it up. Okay, and that'll give me a neater corner. Because it's terry cloth, it is also kind of forgiving on the seams. So if you turn it to the front, this is what it'll look like. Okay, so my edges will look like that. I'm going to take it over to the sewing machine and I'm going to stitch down around all of these edges, just not at the top. Okay, I'm back to using my 1/4 inch foot and I'm going to run it right at the edge, and I'll do a little back stitch and then run it down. When I get to the end, I'm going to pivot. Now it is getting a little thick down here. So when I pivot, I may need to use my little bit of my stiletto. I'm going to try to keep it out of the way of the needle. You don't want to get it under that needle. Running it right on the edge. Back stitch, toe pick. And there we have this patch pocket. Okay, I'm going to follow the same lines when I sew it onto my bag. Regardless of which pocket you are using, whether you're using the fabric pocket or the one that you made out of the dish drying mat, you'll want to make sure that, again, you find where they matched up their binding and make sure that's on your bottom. And then I'm going to put this right in the middle. I'm going to eyeball it first, but then I am going to check and make sure that I am kind of centered. So that is at 5.5. That's at about 5. I'm going to move just butch it a little bit over this way. So now 5 1/4, 5 1/4. That looks about right. I'm going to do mine pretty much in the center, or even maybe up a little bit to the top, because some of this bottom is going to be taken away by the boxed corners at the bottom. Okay, so you might want it even just a little bit at the top. Wherever you want it, you can eyeball it yourself and see where you want it. And then I'm going to pin it, and I'm actually just going to put a pin right in the middle. And I'm going to take this over and run it around the sewing machine. I need to apologize. I may have forgotten. No, I didn't forget. I accidentally deleted the video of me sewing the pocket onto the front of the bag. So make sure that you only sew on the sides and the bottom. Do not sew on the top, or you will not have a pocket. You will have a patch. Okay, so I'm going to get my template back out. And before I start, I'm going to take these little tags out. Okay, and I'm just going to use my little scissors and go right at the edge, trying not to cut the binding. And I will do the one with the pocket, upside down pocket, the one with the pocket as well. Now, that being said, our next step is to put on our straps. Here they are. We're going to put our straps on. Now we're going to put them on the inside, but you want to make sure on this one it's going to be fairly easy because you're going to see where you sewed your pocket. So make sure that you are putting them on the top part. And again, before I put this one on, I'm going to locate where they stitched that binding together. I'm going to make that my bottom. So I'm going to use my template and a couple pins. And again, I'm going to take my template, put it in the corner, and I'm going to make the edges of my scallop line up. It's not going to line up perfectly because these are not squared, but I have this edge of the scallop and this edge of the scallop. And then I am 1.5 inch down. And if you remember, this template is 2.5 inch square and then 1.5 inch down. And where that mark is, I'm going to place right at that mark. I'm going to place my strap and I'm going to pin that there, and then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So I'm going to match it up again, making sure my scallops are matched up on the sides, and then making sure that my strap is not turned, and I'll put it down at the 1.5 inch mark, okay? And add my pin. Then I'm going to take it over to the sewing machine and I'm going to do a square and an X. And I like to do square, down X, across the bottom, up X, and across the top again, just to make it nice and secure. And I'm going to do that to all 4 places where it is attached, okay? Now, I have it folded up with my pretty chip clips. And remember, this time you're on the inside. For me, it's on the gingham, okay? And I'm going to start below the binding so that I don't catch that on the outside. And I'm going to run in a square. When I hit there at that divot, I know to pivot. At the divot, pivot. Hey, that's pretty cool. Take my pin out. I can't find my pin holder. It's underneath my mat. Yes, you can see the little area where I burned it. It's okay, it's on the inside. Pivot again when I hit that divot. And then I can put my pin back over here so it's not going to get lost anywhere. And pivot. Then I'm going to do my X. I'm going to go down first, diagonally, and I just eyeball it. Pivot, run across the bottom again. Pivot, go our other diagonal to finish our X. Pivot again to run across the top, just for extra security. And let's do a little back stitch and cut. Now I have my X on the front. Can you see that? But that's all that you see. You won't see the other part there. Okay? Do the other 3 and then we'll be over at the cutting table. Okay, so when I did this bag, it had the scallops as well around all 4 edges. I only wanted the scallops at the top, and I ended up taking an old rotary cutter, not my good one, and actually slicing off all of the scallops on this one, which was hard because, you know, rubber. I kind of like the way this one looks with only having the scallops at the top. I don't know that I would want the scallops on the sides as well. I don't know. If you do, I don't think I do, but if you do, then what you would do is put ugly sides together, just like we did for this one. Oh maybe I should do it that way because this one's done that way. Okay, I changed my other mind. I'm gonna do it that way. If you want to do it the other way, just put them pretty sides to pretty sides. We're going to do ugly sides to ugly sides, which in this case, they're both pretty because it's the gingham. But we're going to do gingham to gingham, and my pocket's on the outside, and we are going to stitch down this side from top, and you know the top because of your handles and the pocket. We're going to go from top to bottom on both, because I like to make sure my tops are lined up, because we are still going, we're not going to have the scallop at the bottom, just like this one doesn't have the scallop at the bottom. So they will matchy-matchy. Okay, had to talk that through with myself. Thank you. So we're going to go ahead and stitch from top to bottom on both sides. Meet you over there. Okay, so I did put a couple clips here. I don't know whether you can see those. Just in the middle of my scallops, just to keep those together, because when you are doing scallops, you're gonna have to make sure everything stays straight. And then I'm just going to use my 1/4" foot again, if I can hold on to that piece of string, thread. And I'm going to run, actually I'm gonna use this line in the quilting and run my stitch there with my presser foot right on the edge of that, because that way it should not catch, my stitch should not catch the scallops. So gonna go ahead and run that there, and I will do a back stitch. And then just keep my presser foot, looking at the presser foot, not at the needle, just keep my presser foot right where that stitch line is on the quilting. Okay, get rid of that clip. Let me get rid of this clip. Actually, I can get rid of that one too. And when I get to the bottom, I'm going to go over the bottom, and I will do a back stitch even though this is going to be cut off. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So you go ahead and do that, and then I'll meet you back to do our boxed corners in our bottom. Now, these are all sewn together, and I have a tunnel. And I'm going to actually turn this inside out now to do the bottom. So go ahead and turn it inside out. And then we're going to sew across the bottom, straight across. Okay, so I might have forgotten to film over there, but all I did was I clipped in the divots of the scallops, and then I just ran a straight stitch right on the bottom. Okay, sorry about that. So now take those back off, and what we're going to do is we're going to use our template again, and we're going to do our boxed corners. So put it on the edge, and let's see if I brought one over here. I did. You're going to want to mark your corners, 2.5 inches, 2.5 inches on both sides, and then use your fabric scissors to cut that off. Okay? And you're going to do this on both sides. And then, if you remember, what we're going to do is we are going to take these and we're going to spread your fabric like this and pinch your corners, and we're going to run a stitch across here, okay, on each side. Got it? So what I did is I already ran one straight stitch just to hold it steady, and now I'm going to use my zigzag stitch, and I set mine to a higher stitch level. I have my distance at a 6, and then my width at a 6, and then the distance between the stitches at a 1. And I'm just going to clean up these edges, so I'm going to take it right at the edge to lock that in like we did earlier. And don't forget to backstitch. Run the rest of the way down and then do your other side. Take it slow, especially here in the middle over those multiple layers, and lock in all of those raw edges for a more professional finish. Okay, it's time for the big reveal. Let's go ahead and flip this out, see what it looks like. Can't wait to see it. Poke those corners out. Use your thumbs, use your fingers, use a chopstick if you need to. And here is our tote bag, and our matching snap bag fits right inside. Right inside. How cute is that? I hope you enjoyed this. See you next time.